If you look at the current state of Solidity, there's over $4.5 billion lost every year in smart contract hacks. We spent a lot of time in like formal verification research, and it's clear that the EVM wasn't built to scale. If you look at current REST-based programming like the SVM and MoveVM, there's much more safer, secure memory types that enable you to, as a developer, have secure control over your language.
None of the information in this podcast constitutes investment advice or an offer, recommendation, or solicitation by YB Ventures or any of its affiliates to buy or sell any securities. Hey everyone, Benga here with YB Ventures Podcast. On today's episode, we have Rushi Manche, co-founder of Movement Labs. He's a pioneering engineer and a visionary architect behind Movement Labs' groundbreaking technology, bringing the power of Move to Ethereum. For anyone who is new, this is the YB Ventures Podcast, where we do snapshots with interesting builders and founders across crypto and AI. Check out wagbventures.io to learn more about the syndicate behind the podcast. As always, thanks for joining and listening in. Let's jump into the conversation with Rushi. What's up, dude? Welcome and thanks for being on the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me and really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, love to have Crypto Royalty on. Going to start from the very top here. So talk to us about Rushi before crypto and your journey into crypto.
Of course, started off my career, I would say, in engineering, worked at United Health Group, where I focused on distributed systems and database. And then early on, so 4.5 years ago or so, was in like early Cosmos and Ethereum systems, just doing engineering here and there. Around 2 years ago, started building in the moving system. The general thesis was Facebook was building a new language designed for putting the entire Facebook ecosystem on chain. So here's opportunity for billions of users to come and use crypto daily, and got a lot of folks excited. I think post FTX, we started spending a lot of time with the moving system and wanted to bring the Move VM to Ethereum. So around November 2022, we started Movement, first Move VM layer 2 on Ethereum. Best way to think about it is app just and suite, which is Move, combined with EVM compatibility, living on Ethereum. Yeah, we're one of the bigger layer 2s in the space, have a pretty exciting system. Excited to talk about it.
Yeah, no, awesome. We want to definitely dive in. But before we do that, talk to us about when you decided it was time to build, a new programming language away from Solidity.
Yeah, so I think if you look at the current state of Solidity, there's over $4.5 billion lost every year in smart contract hacks. We spent a lot of time in formal verification research, and it's clear that the EVM wasn't built to scale. If you look at current REST-based programming like the SVM and MoveVM, there's much more safer and secure memory types that enable you to, as a developer, have secure control over your language. So to that extent, I think when you look at EVM with the $4.5 billion lost every year, very slow, clunky, and you compare that to the Solana virtual machine, the Move virtual machine, which are parallelized execution, formally verified transactions, is much better execution paths. So that's kind of the thesis behind alternative VMs, and we're focused on the Move VM.
That's awesome. Certainly critical points that Movement Labs is addressing there. Maybe you could tell us a bit more on, as a blockchain infrastructure layer, what the stack looks like and how you're solving the problems that you kind of saw from Solidity.
Yeah, so with Solidity, there's a few things. First of all, with the way you structure VM, there's no console formal verification. So when you go to Auditor, what they do is they check each line of code, they check for resource type, memory safety, etc. With MoveVM, that's process is automated. So every time you execute smart contracts, each module is checked for resource, memory safety, etc. with the Move prover. So you can think of it like an auditor that lives in your virtual machine that can provide some security guarantees. Obviously, it's not perfect and it's not 100% secure, but I would say it's orders of magnitude much more secure, which enable you to execute smart contracts and not worry about getting hacked. And beyond that, what we see is let's say, for example, you're building a game. The current state of Solidity doesn't enable expressivity for contracts. Whereas Move, you have modules for asset-oriented protocols. So let's say, for example, you have a gun in a Web3 game. In the Web2 version or in the Solidity version, you have to mint and burn NFT each time you upgrade state, which means it's very slow, clunky, and difficult for Web2 developers to write gaming contracts. For Move, it's very similar to JavaScript. You can customize each module or each item, in-game item as a module, so you can experiment with that well. So TLDR, you have much more expressivity with contracts and then very secure.
Gotcha. Yeah, TLDR, but would want to focus on, the key areas that movement has been addressing, around smart contract vulnerabilities, scalability limitations, fragmented liquidity. I mean, all these areas, like where do you think, Move has made the biggest impact to the modular stack?
Yes, I think we're in terms of modular stack, the Move VM is really focused on execution. So most people today acknowledge Ethereum as a global settlement layer. You have different DA layers like Celestia and Eigen, and we're focused on execution layer with the ability to essentially take current VMs, which is the EVM, and amplify it with the Move VM. So we focus mostly on execution layer, whereas we leverage Ethereum and Celestia for alternative settlement.
All right. I mean, as I think of Movement Labs and think of what you have been building, really key features or products that have come out during this journey. Can you help educate our audience and sort of walk us through or break down what the Movement Network has been like?
Yeah, so the Movement Network takes the best of Ethereum, Sys, and the Move VM. So if you go on testnet, that Movement Labs XYZ, you can check out the testnet that's live today. Any Move contracts, whether you're an Aptos developer, a Sui developer, or EVM developer, lives on top of the Move VM. And then you can deploy, execute, and run smart contracts. The thesis is living on top of Ethereum for settlement, having that access to liquidity and security, but having a high throughput execution layer. So the ability to do 30,000 plus transactions in theory, the ability to have secure smart contracts, the ability to have better user experience. So we're actually the first, if not the only, fast layer 2 in production, whereas most layer 2s today, like Arbitrum, Optimism, etc., are all single-threaded, very slow, and not scalable virtual machines. So with Movement, you can fully test out the VM, execution layer, and use Move in real time.
Yeah, that's awesome. As you describe it, these are pretty impressive, significant improvements on how the infrastructure works today. I'm curious, what has the response from Ethereum developers? What has that response been like to Movement Network? And do you think they will adopt Move long term?
Yes, so one of the benefits of being Ethereum layer 2 is that people in Ethereum communities, EVM communities, are much more open to working with you because you're still part of the Ethereum network. I think most alt L1s come to market and they're positioned as this Ethereum killer, which kind of turns off majority of like the Web 2, with the majority of the Web 3 users and developers. Whereas our positioning as Ethereum layer 2 enables us to tap into EVM developers or at Solidity today, Ethereum core consensus engineers, just general like venture capitalists and supporters who believe in the Ethereum mission. So I think if you look at layer ones today, when we first started off, people struggle with the move concept, but since we've been coming a long way, people genuinely believe in the move thesis.
Got it. Hey everybody, quick thing here. We're excited to announce WAGMI Advisory, your home for all things fundraising, hiring, and partnerships. This is all about supercharging your project with the WAGMI network, consisting of over 20,000 executives, investors, and builders in crypto, all ready to come alongside your project to help it succeed. Get in touch at team@wagmiventures.io to learn more and figure out if WAGMI Advisory is the right fit for your project. Let's get back to the show. So I'm going to say that the take then is that there are folks who are embracing, at least they're seeing the direction of the improvements and certainly embracing it.
Yep.
You recently shared a take on EVM going to zero, which, raised a bit of buzz, mixed reactions. Would like to unpack what your thoughts are there and maybe even some responses to some of the reactions that you saw on your take.
Yeah, so my stance here is that the EVM is a lot like the PHP of Web 2, whereas the early Web 2 apps were built like PHP, Ruby, etc., still very usable. We probably use some of them here and there. But majority of the apps and websites that are being built today are in JavaScript. So to that extent, I think if you look at Web 3, Solidity is a PHP, where the early onset of apps like Aave, Uniswap, Curve were all built in PHP, in like Solidity. And I predict that most usage of Aave will still be in EVM apps. But when you look at like the future of apps that mom will use, family will use, future friends, family will use, it'll be like fully on-chain social, fully on-chain consumer, or books on-chain that makes sense. Pretty much end-to-end DeFi experience that is fully verified, secure, high throughput. And what we see there is that the current EVM isn't able to scale. It's very slow, clunky, and a bad user experience. So when we compare the Move and SVM language, we compare that to JavaScript, which is like the React and Views of the world, where if you want to build a 0-to-1 app, you want to build a 0-to-1 crypto application, you have to use a Rust-based VM, whether it's Solana virtual machine or the Move virtual machine. And we're seeing that developer growth today. Like when Move started off, it was 3% of monthly active developers. Today it's 7.5%. Next year, it picked 13.2%. And it's only growing. And yeah, we're
Doubling.
super excited for that.
Yeah, no, that's pretty exciting. I was just saying that growth feels like it's almost doubling.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so I'm going to turn to another major L2 ecosystem, only because there's a lot of talk around leapfrogging to Solana. Would love to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, so I think Solana is obviously a really great benchmark of high throughput capacities. I'm personally pretty bullish Solana. I think SVM is a great framework and there's also proliferation of SVMs. I think that the main focus with Solana is you're seeing a bunch of also rollups. So even Solana is going modular, a bunch of L2s and restaking protocols that use Sol as an asset class. But what I disagree with is that there's a lack of focus on security. Like
Mhm.
even Solana goes down here and then, but that's not the real issue. There's a lot of exploits and things that happen in the Solana ecosystem that make it difficult for developers to use. The best example is like the way you use the Solana virtual machine prioritization. Because it's not optimistic, it's very, very difficult for developers to manage state and conflicts of transactions. The Move ecosystem has built-in optimistic prioritization and built-in formal verification so that essentially if you're a developer, you don't need to worry about how the chain works. You can just deploy contracts. But I think there is a future where both coexist. It's very similar like React and Vue. Both are two cutting edge frameworks and both coexist in Web 2. So I predict they'll both coexist in Web 3.
Yeah, I think in my intro earlier, I was talking about how Move is bringing groundbreaking tech to Ethereum. And so it now looks like it's not just to Ethereum, but also to Solana.
Exactly.
Awesome. Help us unpack your integrated execution approach on the blockchain network performance. I'm guessing this really relates to combining modular components. It would be good to sort of hear you break it down.
Yeah, so I think the way we look at it is like monolithic blockchains were the first few chains that existed. So you had like Ethereum, Solana, Aptos Suite, all layer ones. And the modular approach with like Celestia and beyond was how do you create a fully customized chain? How do you focus on one DA layer, on one VM, on one execution layer? But there isn't an overlap yet. I think once modular chains mature and once monolithic chains develop, you'll have this convergence of modular and monolithic, where like we're seeing that today. Solana has like layer twos, it has D layers, it has sequencers, and then the modular chains they have a bunch of integrations that are coming up together that can combine execution layers, DA layers, and settlement layers. So Movement, for example, no one's gonna be able to tell there's a different DA layer or a different settlement layer or a different execution layer. It's just going to feel like a move-based blockchain. Similarly, like Solana and like Eclipse, you won't be able to tell there's a different user experience there, largely, right? As time progresses, the glue, if you will, between modulators will get more and more compact, so that when you compare a modular project to a monolithic project, there won't be much difference, especially in a few years from now. So the convergence of like this modular versus monolithic, I like to call, is integrated, where you're either integrating a stack end to end, which is like what Solana's doing, or you integrate multiple stacks end to end, which is what like Movement's doing. And regardless, both will coexist, and that's what we're building towards.
Is that generally like, building towards what the market demand is, or just making sure that both options are available to developers?
I think both options available. I would say the same category, right? It's like if you have a Solana layer two and like an Ethereum layer two, both are considered integrated in my eyes because you have some customization of execution for Solana, and you have some customization execution for Ethereum. Both have their UXs and the different trade-offs, but generally both are coexisting. So I think they're very compliant in that sense.
Wow, this is all really exciting. And, obviously can't wait to hear more on what you guys are building. Would love to hear, if you can give us some sort of window into what your roadmap is, what the long-term outlook is, that would also be helpful.
Yeah, of course. So I think we launched testnet 2 months ago, have smashed. I think it's like over 8 million active addresses and a few hundred million transactions. And we have one of the most active and used testnets in the space today. And then we look at mainnet. We're targeting mainnet of the month that brings this high throughput execution layer to Ethereum. We want to be the fastest and most secure layer to when we go to production, as well as with the fast design mechanism that enables you to have better finality guarantees. And we're targeting that all end of the month.
That's a pretty sharp timeline. I'm looking forward to seeing all that. And final question before we let you go here, Rushi. What else in crypto are you seeing? What else excites you outside of, the modular stack or Move?
I think is like the market's trending towards the way of infrastructure. Like I think we spent the last few years on like L1s and L2s and focused on fast, speed, cheap. But then now is a market sense that like maybe we have all the infrastructure that we need, right? We have the high performant layer ones, layer twos that use EVM, that use alternative VMs, that have different dealers. We've solved many of the problems in the Ethereum scaling roadmap. We've solved the DA issue. We've solved the execution layer issue. It's TBD how these things play out, but I think generally the infrastructure development has been set. So I think a lot of these venture capitalists, as well as like private markets and public markets, are really focusing on speculation activities. Like obviously, meme coins this cycle have taken off, and a majority of capital inflows that went to meme coins. But I think we're also seeing a lot of inflows towards like consumer apps or like on-chain order books and perps markets that get people excited. Like people want applications that day-to-day people can use and actually have utility, and less of the focus on infrastructure, which is healthy, I think. Infrastructure is getting repriced. All the L2s that we funded aren't doing as well as we thought. And even like some of the bigger infrastructure protocols are getting repriced. Whereas like things like meme coins and things like revenue is being discussed amongst circles, which I think is not healthy. So the TLDR is like we're seeing less infrastructure and more applications, which hopefully means more users.
Yeah, I think as we sort of solve for the infrastructure layer in crypto, you start to see more real use case applications for all the infrastructure that is being built out. But yeah, really appreciate your take on it. Very excited about your testnet launch and the upcoming releases towards the end of the month. Wanted to stay close to the project and really appreciate you being on the show today. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the time. Really appreciate having me on.
Awesome. Take care.
Cheers.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, go ahead and give us a good 5-star rating and subscribe wherever you're getting your podcasts so you can get all the latest conversations from the most interesting founders, builders, and investors from across the world. Thanks so much and have